Hi friends, this is Professor Vinod D'Souza, Associate Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, AJ Institute of Engineering and Technology, Mangalore. Today we will discuss the topic called as specifications. In estimation, to prepare an estimation of any structure, maybe a building or maybe a dam, bridge or anything, we require three important things. That is, first we require the drawings called as plan, elevation, cross sections, where we will get the dimensions and details of all the components of the structure. Second, we require specifications, where we'll come to know what are the details required for materials, what is the workmanship required for the construction, and all these details should be written in the specification. Third, we require the rates, and by using these three data, we can prepare the estimation of any of the structures. So, in this, the second one, that is called a specification, it is an essential document wherein we will come to know what are the materials required for the construction, what are the specification of those materials, what are the workmanship required to construct that structure, how it is constructed. All these informations are written in that document, and that is called as specifications. So it is an essential document for any type of construction. Here we will come to know what are the details of materials required, what are the various labor gang required for the construction, what are the qualities of the materials required for the construction. So all these informations are written in this document, and that is called as specifications. So without specification, it is not possible to calculate the rates of any items. For example, if we want to do the excavation for foundation, then if we don't write the specifications and if we quote a rate, then in the site, if we met with a hard rock, then the contractor has to pay the rate because he has not given any specifications. Suppose he is going to meet with the water, again he has to clear the water and then he has to do the excavation because he has not mentioned any term in the specification. That's why in the specification it is required to mention each and every terms in details, so that the rates whatever you have calculated belongs to the particular specifications. If the specification is going to change, the rates are also going to change, and hence the entire cost of the project is going to change. That's why this is an important document, and before preparing any contract, this has to be done, and that is called as specifications. So let us see what is specification, what is definitions, and other necessities required for a specification. A specification is a specific description of a particular subject. An engineering specification contains detailed description of all workmanship and materials which are required to complete an engineering project in according with its drawings and details. That means the specification will contain detailed description of workmanship and materials. Workmanship means how the work should be constructed or how the work should be executed. For example, if it is plastering, how the surface should be clean, how the mortar should be mixed, how it is applied on the wall, and how many days of curings are required. Everything should be written in detail, and that is called as specifications. Similarly, about the materials, for example, if you are using the cement, what should be the grade of the cement, what should be its initial setting time, what should be its final setting time. All these details should be mentioned, that is called as about the materials. The data regarding the materials and workmanship is conveyed in a separate contract document which is known as the specification of the work. These datas which are regarding the materials and workmanship should be written in a separate format, and this should be in a form of report, and that is called as specifications. The specifications will be prepared for any other works, maybe for construction of a building, maybe for construction of a bridge, maybe for construction of a canal, or whatever structures you take in civil. For every structure you have to prepare the specifications. Thus the drawing with the specifications will completely define the structure. If you have drawings alone, it's not impossible to do the estimation, because without specifications we will not come to know what are the materials used for the construction, what are the labors required for the construction, what should the workmanship required for the construction. Now plenty of materials are available in nature. Some are natural, some are artificial. If you use the natural materials, sometimes the cost will be high and sometimes cost will be low. Also, if you use artificial materials, the cost will be either low or high. So we have to specify what type of materials we are going to use for the construction, and then we have to prepare the rates. For example, if you are going to construct doors and windows, the windows can be constructed by using wood, or also they are constructed by using aluminium. If you are going to construct the windows by using those, the rate will be high compared to the aluminium. So if it doesn't mention anything in the specifications, then it will be difficult to calculate the rates. That's why we have to mention either we are going to use the wood. If you are going to use the wood, then what type of wood we are going to use, whether it is teak wood, jackwood, likewise, or if you are going to use the aluminium, then what type of aluminium you are going to use, whether it is powder coated, whether it is plain, whether it is tinted glasses or whether plain glasses. So all details should be written in the document, and that is called a specification. This specification is furnished separately along with the drawings, and it is an essential part of the engineering contracts. So whenever you prepare a contract document, it should contain the specifications, because tomorrow something happens, say a building is constructed is of not of the proper order, or if it is having any defects, then owner can go to the court and he can argue along with the specifications. He can argue that the building is not constructed as per the specifications, and he can ask the compensation from the contractor. So that's why it's an important agreement or important document of the construction. So let us see why the specifications required, or what are the necessity of the specifications. First thing is, the cost of an unit quantity of work is governed by its specifications. For each and every item, we are going to calculate the rates, and that is called as item rate of a work. And this item rate will be in terms of meter cube, sometimes it will be meter square, sometimes it will be in meters. And to calculate these item rates, we require a detailed specification for that work. If, for example, if it is cement concrete bed, then we can, first thing required is proportion. What is the proportion required for this bed? Whether it is 1:2:4, or whether it is 1:3:6, or whether it is 1:4:8. Because for each and every proportions, the quantities of materials will change. If it is 1:2:4, we require more quantity of cement, whereas if it is for 1:3:6, the quantity of cement will be reduced. And as the quantity of cement is reduced, the cost is also going to reduce. That's why we should clearly mention what should be the proportion. Secondly, we have to give what is the thickness of the concrete bed. Again, if the thickness increases, the quantity of cement and other materials also increases. Third, we have to tell what is the mixing, either it is done by hand mixing, or whether we have to do the mixing by using some machineries. If it is machineries, then we have to hire the machineries, again the cost will increase. So all these items has to be clearly written, and based on this we can calculate the cost of an unit work. Second is, specification of your work is required to specify the quality and quantity of different materials required for a construction work and is one of the essential contract document. By using the specifications, we can write what should be the quality of materials required. If it is sand, then we can write that sand should be free from salts, should not contain clay particles, it should be free from dust and other organic matters. All these are called as quality of sand. Similarly, when we talk about the bricks, you can say the brick should be of first class, should have uniform size, regular size, should be free from lumps, defects, cracks. All these properties you can write and they are called as quality of materials. Similarly, we can calculate what is the quantity of materials required for so that the contractor can procure these quantities before itself so that there won't be any delay in the construction. That's why to specify the quality and quantity of materials we require the specifications. This also specifies the workmanship and the method of doing the work. That means in the specification you have to write how the work should be carried out according to its order. For example, if you are going to construct a building, then always the first thing is excavation. So we have to write what are the steps required for the excavation step by step. So if you consider the excavation, then we have to write first the site should be cleaned, then marking should be done, and then excavation should be carried out according to the markings. Then whatever soil is taken from the excavation should be dumped at a distance of around 50 meters from the pit so that the soil should not collapse. If we met with a soft soil, then sides should be timbered. If you met with the water, then it should be pumped. So, bottom and side should be vertical and leveled. Okay, all this detailed description should be written about the excavation. If it is painting, then we have to write what are the step-by-step procedure required for painting and what are the quantity of paint required. So that is called as workmanship and method of doing the work. So if we have the workmanship and method of doing the work clearly, it is easy for the contractor to construct the work. Also, it is easy for the owner to check the work, whether the work is done according to the specifications or not. For a supervisor, for him also it is easy. He can compare whether the work contractor has done according to the given specifications or not. If the contractor is not done according to the specifications, then he doesn't have to pay the same rate. That is the advantage of this specifications. Next things, a work is carried out according to its specifications and the contractor is paid for the same. That means we have to see whether the work is done according to the given specifications or not, and if it is done according to specifications, then only the contractor can be paid whatever the rates he has quoted. Otherwise, we can reduce the rate because he has not done according to specifications. So it is easy to check the work. Specification is necessary to specify the equipments, tools and plants to be engaged for a work and thus enables to procure them beforehand. In the specification, it should be clearly mentioned that what type of equipments, tools and plants required for the construction. For example, if you are going to do the excavations, we can write whether the excavation should be carried out by manually or it is done by using equipments, that is called as JCB. If it is done by using the machineries, then it is easy for the contractor to hire the equipment so that there won't be any delay in the construction. Sometimes during peak seasons, it is difficult to hire the equipment because there will be a lot of demand for the equipments. That's why if you give clear specifications, then contractor can hire the equipment and keep it ready so that there won't be any delay in the constructions. Similarly, if you're doing a concreting for the slab, Then you have to mention whether the concreting will be done by using a hand mixer or whether it will be done by using a RMC. If it is done by using the RMC, then the contractor can book the RMC so that there won't be any delay in supplying the concrete. If it is done by using the lift, then you can order the lift again so that there won't be any delay in the construction. So that is the advantage of specifications. So it should be clearly mentioned what type of equipments are required, what type of tools and plans should be required for the construction. The next step of specification is to verify and check the strength of materials for a work involved in the project. Again, when you are doing the concreting work, it should be specified that this much strength of concrete should be required. If it is M20, then indicate that the compressive strength of the concrete should be 20 kilonewton per meter square. And same can be tested in the laboratory. Since already the strength is mentioned, we can take the cubes during the construction site and later we can find out its strength for 7 and 28 days so that it will be matching with the specifications. Similarly, if you are going to give the proportion for the mortar, same thing can be tested in the laboratory. If it is bricks, then we have to tell what should the compressive strength of the brick required. And when the contractor brings the bricks to the site, then the owner or engineer can check the strength of the bricks either in the laboratory or he can give to someone else so that he can come to know what is the strength of the bricks. And if he found that the strength is not according to the specification, then he can reject the bricks. Okay. That's why the specification gives us the idea about the strength of the materials. And finally, specification is an essential contract document and it is required for arbitration or court cases. Say after the construction of the structure or during the construction of structure, if the owner is not satisfied with the workmanship, then he can go to the court by taking with specifications, and he can claim that the work has not done according to the specifications, so that he has to give the compensation. He can take the compensation from the contractor, or contractor also go to the court saying that the owner has not paid him. He has done according to the specification and owner has not paid him, and he can ask the compensation from the owner. So these are the necessity of specifications. That's why specification becomes an important document for any type of construction. For any government projects, they will prepare the specification before itself and then they will give it to the contractor along with the tenders. So it's easy for the contractor. He can study the specifications, accordingly he can quote the rates, and those who are quoting less, they will get the job. Okay? That is called as specifications. The requirements for a specifications are: specification should be clearly and concise form. Whenever we are writing the specification, we should write whatever the work should be done, it should be in the clear format so that the contractor will understand. If you write some complicated words or if you write some complicated sentence, it is difficult to understand for a layman or for a contractor, and then he will get confused. That's why it should be written clearly and in a concise form. Whenever we are writing the specifications, we should try to avoid the repetition and unusual words, so that there won't be any ambiguity in the constructions. Ambiguous words such as suitable, proper, etc. should be avoided. Okay, we cannot write, say, if you take this company cement is suitable or not. That should not be written. It should be write clearly what companies of cement is required or the strength of the cement is required. Okay. Again, if you write, if you use M20 grade concrete, it will be proper. That also should be avoided. We have to specify that you should use M20 grade of concrete. There should be any confusion in the workmanship. As far as possible, the clauses should be arranged in the order in which work will be carried out. Okay, that indicates that whatever works we are going to do in the site, accordingly the specifications will be written. The building, the specifications will start from excavations. We cannot write the specification for doors and windows, then we can write the excavation. That should not be a proper. Should start with excavation, then soiling, then bed concrete, then foundation, then columns. Likewise, the specifications should go and should end with the finishing items. These specifications depend upon the site conditions. For each and every sites, there will be different specifications. Whatever specifications are written for one site, that cannot be used for other sites. So we have to see what are the conditions pertaining or prevailing in the site, and accordingly we have to write the specifications. Some sites are free from waterlogged areas, and some sites the way the water table will be very high. So there the construction procedure will change. So keeping these points in mind, we have to write the specifications. Again, specifications depends on the nature of work. If you are going to construct a building, the specifications all will be different. Similarly, if you are going to construct a dam, again the specifications will vary. If you are going to construct a road, pavement, the specifications will vary. That's how the specifications will vary with the nature of work, and we have to see what type of work we are going to do, and accordingly we have to change the specifications. The specifications, while writing the specifications, purpose for which the work is carried out, that should be noted. Whether it's a residential building, whether it's a mall, whether it's a high-rise buildings, whether it's a bridge, that purpose we have to see, and accordingly we have to write the specifications. The type of specifications. The specifications are classified into two categories. They are called as general specifications and detailed specifications. Then, so if you see any of the tablets or any of the medicines bottles, some information will be written on that bottle. Say these drugs will contain this many chemicals and these are percentages. They are called as general specifications. Similarly, whenever we are going to purchase any item from a shop, some small information will be written on the packet. Say there is a manufacturing date, what should be the weight of that packet, what are the ingredients involved in that packet. So they are all called as general specifications. They will not tell us how that item has manufactured or how that drug has manufactured, what process involved in that manufacturing. So those specifications are called as general specifications. So here also in civil engineering terms, general specification means it gives a brief idea about the materials. They will not give us anything in detail. Now, if you see general specifications, here nature and class of the work and name of materials that should be used are described. Okay. Only nature and class of works. Say we can call this whether it's first class brickwork, second brickwork, likewise. And name of materials indicates that what are the name of the materials used, only that is specified. Say for example cement or aluminium or paint. No description of materials are given in this topic. Okay. Only a brief description of every item is given. Only a brief description, not detailed description. For example, if it is foundation, then we can write that first class brickwork in CM 1:6 for the foundations. We are not going to write the quality of bricks, we are not going to write the quality of cement, we are not going to write the quality of cement, we are not going to write the workmanship, nothing is written in this. So it is useful for estimating the projects. Sometimes quickly we have to estimate the project. At that case, these general specifications are essential. General specifications do not form part of the contract document because they will not contain anything in detail. Only a brief description is given here. So they will not become a part of the contract document. If it is a part of the contract document, then all the specifications should be written in detail. But here, since only a brief description is given, they will not become the part of the contract document, and they are called as general specifications. The second classification is called as detailed specifications. Here, details of the materials and workmanship is given. The detailed specifications form a part of the contract document because here everything is written in detail. If it is workmanship, from beginning till the end, all the procedures are given step by step. If it is materials, its quality is clearly mentioned. What should be the quality of that material? What should be the strength of that material? How it is tested? How many days of curing is required, etc., etc. Everything should be written in detail. They specify the qualities, quantities, and proportion of materials. They will tell us what type of cement is used, and for that cement, what should be the strength required. They tell us what type of bricks are used, and what should be the compressive strength of those bricks, and what should be the quality of those bricks. They tell us how many numbers of bricks are required for the construction, how many bags of cement is required for a particular work, and also they tell us what should be the proportion of the materials. For example, if it is concreting for the slab, then is it M20 or M15? M20, again M20 means we have to specify 1:2:4. M15 means we have to specify 1:2:4, etc. Then method of preparation and execution for a particular item of work in a project. Method of preparation and execution. If it is concrete, then how the concrete should be prepared, how it is mixed, how it is laid, how it is compacted, how many days of curing is required, then how the strength is assessed. All detailed descriptions should be written in that specification. The detailed specification of the different item of works are prepared separately, and they describe what the work should be and how they shall be executed and constructed. So it will be easy for a contractor, also it is easy for an engineer, and also it is easy for the owner, because he will come to know how the work is carried out step by step, and accordingly he can supervise or he can do the work. While writing the detailed specifications, the same order of sequence as the work is to be carried out is maintained. That is also very much essential. If you are constructing a building, the specifications should start from earthwork excavation, and that should end with the painting or other finishing items. You should not mix the items. You should go accordingly. So that is called as detailed specifications. Now let us see what are the general specifications of a first class building. Whenever we say it's a first class building, the building is constructed by using good quality of materials with good workmanship and good supervising. That is called as first class building. So when we are writing the general specifications, again we know that general specification means only brief description will be given, nothing is explained in detail. So the construction starts with the foundation. So what you can write for foundation and plinth is brickwork and foundation and plinth shall be of first class brick in cement or lime mortar over cement or lime concrete. This itself is enough in case of general specifications. We don't have to mention in detail what is the proportions required for the bed concrete, what is the proportion required for the brickwork. Only briefly within one line you can finish the foundation and plinth. If it is filling, then foundation trenches and plinth shall be filled up with coarse sand. If you are going to write the detailed specification, then we have to write what is the type of sand required, how the filling will be done in different layers, and how it is compacted, consolidated. All these things we have to write. But here in general specification, just one line: foundation, trench and plinth shall be filled with coarse sand. That is sufficient. If it is damp, of course, We can write DPC shall be 2 centimeter thick cement concrete or 2 centimeter thick cement mortar with 5% by weight of cement or other standard waterproofing materials. Again, you don't have to mention what is the specific name of the waterproofing material, only brief line is enough. If it is superstructure, superstructure shall be of first class brickwork in cement mortar. This itself is sufficient. We don't have to mention about the width, we don't have to mention how the superstructure is constructed, how many courses should be laid per day, what should be the mortar joint, nothing is specified here. If it is roofing, the roof shall be 10 cm thick RCC slab with 10 cm average lime terracing over it. Then if it is flooring, mosaic flooring shall be provided in drawing room, dining room, bathroom and water closet. Bedroom floor shall be colored and polished. Okay. Again, we don't have to write what type of mosaic is used, how it is laid, how many polishing should be done, how many days of curing is done. Nothing is required, only one line. Similarly, finishing. Inside and outside shall be 12 mm cement plastered. The inside of drawing, dining and bedroom shall be distempered and rest portion whitewashed 3 coats. The outside shall be color washed over 3 coats of whitewash. That itself is sufficient. If it is doors and window frame shall be seasoned teak wood and shutters of 3 cm thick teak wood panelled. Brass fitting shall be provided. Doors and windows shall be varnished and French polish. And the last one is miscellaneous items, that is rainwater pipe shall be of asbestos cement or cast iron finishing with paint. All sanitary and water supply and electric fittings shall be of first class materials. So these are the general specification for a first class building, because here whatever materials are used all are of supreme quality. Whereas if you are going for second class building, some quality of the materials will reduce. Instead of going for teak wood doors and shutters, we can use some other wood like jack or other wood, or you can replace them by aluminum or some other materials. Instead of going for mosaic or tiles, we can replace it by some other tiles. Okay, so slight changes will be there in the second class buildings, and they are called as general specifications normally of a buildings. As we have seen the general specification of a first class building, now in the specifications we have to write about the quality of materials. So let us see what we can write about the materials. Let us start with the first class brickworks. When we say bricks, there are different quality of bricks are available. Some bricks are called as first class brick, some are second class, where the quality and size and other strength of the bricks will vary. So whenever we say about the first class bricks, then bricks should be molded from good earth, free from all traces of salt. So write this point clearly. Whatever brick should be molded, it should be from good earth and it should be free from salts. They should be of uniform deep red and copper color, thoroughly burned without being vitrified. Since bricks are manufactured by burning, the burning it should be thoroughly burnt so that it will get a deep red cherry or copper color. They should be hard, sound and of uniform size and shape, having each two adjacent plane surfaces at 2 right angles. The sides of the bricks should have proper right angle, otherwise the joints will not be of some same patterns. The bricks should be free from cracks, chips, flaws, stones or humps of any kind. They should not have any such defects. They should not show any signs of efflorescence either in dry state or after soaking in water. Some bricks they if they've kept it for a dry or if we immerse in a water, they show some source of salts appearing on its surface, and that is called as efflorescence. So these bricks should not show any such signs. They should be homogeneous in nature and emit a clear ringing sound on being struck. When we hold two bricks in our two hands and we struck each other, then we should hear a clear ringing sound that indicates that the bricks are of first class. Dry bricks should not absorb more than 1/6 of their weight when immersed in water for 1 hour. They should not break when it is dropped from a height of 1 to 1.5 meter. And finally, bricks should be of standard dimensions as per ISI, that is 19 by 9 by 9 centimeters. Cement. The cement used for reinforced concrete works shall be either OPC, that is ordinary Portland cement, or rapid hardening Portland cement, or blast furnace slag cement, or high alumina cement of approved specifications. For normal works, ordinary Portland cement will be of good. Otherwise, if it is a special situation, then we have to mention what type of cement is required. Then we have to mention about the strength of the cement. That is, the minimum tensile strength of ordinary Portland cement should be 175 kg per centimeter square after 7 days. Minimum tensile strength after 7 days should be 25 kg per centimeter square. Initial setting time should be less than 30 minutes, and final setting time should not be more than 10 hours. So these are the general specifications we can write for cement. Sand. The fine aggregates, that is sand, shall conform to IS 383 1963 or IS 515 1959. The sand should be clean, sharp, heavy, and gritty to touch. It should be free from clay, mica, vegetable, and other organic matters, and also from any foreign matters. So sand, whatever sand we are using, should be free from all these impurities. Normally, river sand or pit sand is preferred as it does not contain any salt contents. If a sample of sand contains more than 4 to 6% of clay, then it should be washed thoroughly. We can use it, but it should be washed and then it should be used in the constructions. Sand must be cleaned by screening before it is used. Sometimes sand will contain small pebbles, small stones, or any other material, so which should be screened before it is used. Sand should be perfectly dry before it is used. Otherwise, bulking effect of sand must be taken into account. If the sand is wet, then because of bulking, we have to vary the amount of water which is required for construction. That's why if we are using sand, you should see that it is perfectly dry, so that whatever water ratio you have calculated, same water ratio can be maintained. Otherwise, we have to vary the water cement ratio. Coming to water. Water is an essential ingredient for construction of any structure. It is required for mixing of cement, sand, and aggregates, or it is required for curing purposes. So in concrete works, the water is used for both mixing and curing, and it should be free from injurious amounts of deleterious materials. Simple saying, the potable water which is fit for drinking can be used for construction purposes. Reinforcement. The reinforcement shall be mild steel and medium tensile steel wires conforming to 432 1960 or cold twisted steel bars conforming to IS 1786-1961 or deformed steel conforming to IS 1139-1959. All reinforcement shall be clean and free from loose meal scales, dust, loose rust, and of paints. Welded joints in reinforcement may be used, but in all cases of important connections, tests shall be made to prove that the joints are of the full strength of bars connected. Welding of reinforcement shall be done in accordance with the recommendations of relevant Indian standards for welding of mild steel bars used in reinforced cement concrete. Normally, the steel which is used should be free from all these impurities like dust, loose rust, paints, oils, and other things. And if it is required to do the welding, then it should be done according to the IS standards. So these are the specifications of materials. Now we'll see a step-by-step procedure for each and every items which are required in the construction. The first item of any construction is earthwork excavations. So now we'll see what are the specifications required for earthwork excavation for foundation trenches. So before starting the excavation work, the whole area where the work is to be done should be cleaned of grass, roots of trees, and other organic matters. Because before construction, we have to mark the foundation sites, and to know the foundation site, it is required that we should clean the site. If there is any bushes, if there is grass, everything should be leveled and site should be cleaned. And second step will be the excavations will be carried out exactly in accordance with the dimensions given on the drawings or other dimensions as the engineer in charge may decide. So we have to do the excavation only with the specified sizes which are given in the drawings, or if there is any changes, then site engineers may specify, and only the excavations will be done according to that sizes. We should not do this excavation for the entire site or other areas. Sides of the trenches shall be vertical and its bottom is perfectly leveled both longitudinally and transversely. Okay. This is very important criteria. Whenever we do the excavation, we should see that the sides should be perfectly vertical and bottom should be perfectly horizontal. When the soil is soft, loose, or slushy, the trench shall be widened by allowing steps on either sides, or the sides sloped or shored up. Okay. During excavation, if rocks or rocky soils are found, it shall be leveled as far as possible, and any irregularities shall be filled with concrete. If the excavation is done in earth, the bottom of the trenches shall be sprinkled with water and it is ramped. Sometimes when we do the excavation in loose soil, we will do the excavation slightly more than the required depth, and this depth shall be filled with concrete only. We should not use the soil to refill the trenches, otherwise the strength of the foundation trench will be reduced. No material excavated from foundation trenches shall be placed than 1 meter of the outer edges of the excavations. If you place the excavated materials near the edges, there are chances that the soil may fall in the trenches during foundation bed or other works, and it will obstruct the work. That's why, as far as possible, we have to place the soil 1 meter away from the trenches, and it's better if you place it minimum of 20 to 30 meters away from the trenches. Water in trenches must be bailed or pumped out, and where it is required that the sides may fall down, arrangement shall be made for adequate timber shoring. If we are doing the excavation in waterlogged areas, there's always risk of the sites may collapse. So to protect the sites, the timbering should be done, and we have to protect the sites so that there won't be any collapse of sites during excavations. When it is specified that the work is to be carried out without removing pipes, cables, sewers, etc., all of them should be temporarily shored and saved from any damages. If there is a pipeline, maybe water line or sewer line, then we should see that there won't be damage to those pipes and sewers. Care should be taken to protect these pipes and sewer lines. The materials or valuables found during excavation shall be the property of the government. Though the land belongs to the owner, but whatever belongings or valuables found below the ground level, they should be the property of the government. The cost of all materials and labor required for fencing and protecting against risk of accidents due to open excavation shall be provided. If we are doing the excavation and if it is a deep excavation, then the sites should be fenced and should be protected against the risk of accidents. So these are the specifications required for earthwork excavation and foundations, and noting all the specifications, the rates should be quoted. Tomorrow we can't say that we have not read the specifications properly and we have quoted less, so we want to increase the rates. That will not be possible. Since all the descriptions are given here in detail, we have to provide the rates considering these specifications, and they will form a contract document. Coming to the second aspect, that is called as brick soling in foundation trenches. Sometimes if the soil is loose, then we have to provide a layer below the foundation, and that is called as brick soling. Here the procedure will be: second class bricks in dry conditions shall be laid on the foundation bed as headers with cross upwards. So we can use the second class brickworks for the soling, and it should be laid on the foundation bed as headers with cross upwards. All brickwork shall be laid closely with break joints, and small gap between them shall be filled up with local fine sands or dry looser. But see that as far as possible there won't be any gap, but if we found a small gap, that should be filled by the local sand or dry looser. Brick bats, that is the pieces of bricks, are permitted to use only to provide break joints or shall be placed at the edges of the trenches. Once they are placed neatly, they should be ramped so that we will get a hard foundation bed, and above that the foundation is provided. So this is called as brick soling for foundation trenches. Next item, what we are going to discuss is called as cement concrete in foundation bed. Normally after excavation, then after doing the soling coat, we are going to provide the foundation bed, and that will be of cement concrete. Now to write the specifications for the cement concrete, first we have to specify what type of materials are used for the concrete. They are coarse aggregates, fine aggregates, cement and water, and we have to write the description about these materials. What should be the quality, what should be the strength of these materials. Then we should specify how to mix these ingredients, how to take the quantity of coarse aggregates, fine aggregates, cement, water, and how to mix them. And then third thing is how to lay them on the site, then how to vibrate them, how to protect them, and later how to cure them. So these aspects we have to consider, and we have to write the detailed specification for all these aspects. Let us begin with the materials. As we know that to prepare the cement concrete we require coarse aggregates, fine aggregates, cement and water. The coarse aggregates, The aggregates shall be of the hardest available, such as granite, gravel, or broken stone, as specially mentioned, and they should be free from dust, dirt, and soft material, vegetable matter, etc. It should be well graded from 2.5 centimeter down to 10 cm. When we take up the coarse aggregates, we should see that the size should be 2.5 centimeter down size, and they should be of hardest, and they should be free from dust, dirt, soft material, vegetable material, etc. Coming back to fine aggregates, shall be of coarse sand consisting of sharp and angular grains, and should pass through a size of 5.5 mm mesh sieve. It should be free. It should be clean and free from dust, dirt, and organic matters. Sea sand shall not be used, because you know that sea sand will contain salts, and these salts are dangerous for the construction. That's why, as far as possible, sea sand should be avoided. This shall also follow the standard specifications. Cement. Whenever we are writing the specifications for cement, we should tell cement should be fresh Portland cement and conform to the standard specifications. We cannot give the brand names here. We should not specify any brand names. We have to write generally it should be a fresh Portland cement conforming to standard specifications. Water. Water should be clean, free from alkali, acid, and suitable for drinking purpose. When you say it is a potable water, then whatever water fit for drinking can be used for the constructions. Next aspect is proportioning of concrete. How to take up the various weights of aggregates and how to proportion them, that is called as proportioning of concrete. Proportioning of cement, sand, and coarse aggregate shall be 1:2:4, 1:3:6, or 1:4:8 as specified. When we say it is 1:2:4, it will be 1 part of cement, 2 part of fine aggregates, and 4 parts of coarse aggregates. That will be a volume batching. Same way, when we go for the weight batching, then 1 bag of cement weighs 50 kgs, then fine aggregate should be 100 kgs and coarse aggregate should be 200 kgs. That is called as weigh batching. Coarse aggregates and sand shall be measured by gauge boxes of suitable size, that is 35 into 25 into 40 centimeter, while cement shall be taken by bag weighing 50 kg or a volume of 0.035 cubic meters. When we normally in the site we are doing the volume batching, and this volume batching should be done according to the volume of 1 bag of cement, which will be equal to 0.035 cubic meter. That's why we have to prepare the boxes whose volume is equal to 0.035 cubic meter, so that it will be easy to proportion or easy to take up the coarse and sand. If the sand contains moisture, then bulkage shall be determined at the site and extra quantity of sand so determined shall be added. Okay. This is important when there is moisture content in the sand. If the sand is dry, then we don't have to take this factor into consideration, whereas if it contains moisture, then we have to calculate what will be the bulking limit of the sand, and accordingly we have to take extra quantity for the sand. Coming to mixing of concrete. The mixing of concrete can be done either by hand or by machines. For smaller works, hand mixing will be permitted. Normally, for all structural concrete of proportion 1:2:4 or 1:3:6 shall be mixed in mixing machines. If you are going to provide the slab, then the concrete shall be mixed by using machines only. If you are going to providing for a bed concrete, then hand mixing is permitted. For small quantity, when hand mixing is permitted by engineer in charge, extra cement of 10% over the standard requirement is added, and that provision should be done by the contractor at his own cost. He cannot claim it at the end. If it is machine mixing, the coarse aggregate shall be first placed, which shall be followed by sand and cement, and they should be mixed dry. Normally, for machine mixing, what we are doing is we are taking coarse aggregate. We have to put the coarse aggregate first, then sand should be laid, and then cement, and then it is mixed dry. Then the water is added gradually of the calculated quantity, that is will be based on water cement ratio, and then it is mixed thoroughly. Mixing shall be continued until there is a uniform distribution of the materials and the concrete attain uniform in color and consistency. But in no case shall mixing be done for less than 2 minutes. After all, the materials including water are kept in the drum. Maximum time for mixing will be 2 minutes, and later we have to remove the materials from the drum. The mixed concrete shall be unloaded on a watertight masonry platform or on steel plates. In any cases, the mixed ingredients should not be put on the ground directly. Only such quantity as are required for immediate use are to be mixed at in one time, and the entire quantity should be removed and placed in its position before it sets. Workability. Workability of concrete shall be checked at frequent intervals. We can check the workability by using the slump test, and this should be done frequently to see what is the workability. The slump test or where facilities exist for compaction factor test shall be adopted for this purpose. Next is placing of concrete. Before proceeding to place the concrete, the brick flat soling shall be well wetted and cleaned. If you are not providing the water for the brick flat soling, then there are chances that it will absorb the water from the concrete and there will be less water in the concrete. That's why, to avoid that, first we have to sprinkle the water on the brick flat soling. Concrete shall not be dropped from a height or handled in a manner which will cause separation. You have to see that there won't be any separation of coarse aggregates, fine aggregate and cement. It shall be laid gently in its position and shall be levelled both transversely and longitudinally. Each layer of concrete, while being placed, shall be consolidated by mechanical vibration or by punning with 16 mm dia steel rod and tamping with wooden tampers to form a dense material. Vibrations will be done either by using a mechanical vibrator or by a 16 mm dia steel rod. All surfaces after consolidation should be free from hair walls, honeycombing or any other blemishes. Any water accumulation on the surface of newly placed concrete shall be removed by approved means. Concrete shall be placed continuously till the completion of the part of work between construction joints. Protection and curing. All fresh concrete shall be left 1 to 2 hours after its laying for drying and also from running to surface water and shocks. After 24 hours of laying the concrete, the surface shall be cured by flooding with water of minimum 25 mm depth or by covering with wet absorbed materials. Okay. The curing will be done for a minimum period of 10 days, that is for bed concrete, and later we can start the foundation works. Over the foundation concrete, the masonry work may be started after 48 hours of its laying, but the curing of cement concrete shall be continued along with the masonry work for a minimum period of 10 days. So these are the specifications required for cement concrete bed for foundations, and the rates for cement concrete bed will be calculated based on these specifications.